told your friends goodbye, then you flew away. You said you had to leave to go prepare a place. So that where you are, we may also be. Now there's a world full of doubters, but I believe this could be the day we meet you in the sky. This could be the hour. We will be like you in the twinkling of an eye, caught up by your power. For the sun, it's going down on the day of grace. Oh, and in any moment now, we could see your face. I know it's not your will that any be left behind. So Jesus, help me change some hearts and minds. 'Cause their unbelief, like the spear shoved through your side. Lord, it cuts so deep that it makes me wanna cry. 'Cause this could be the day we meet you in the sky. This could be the hour. We will be like you in the twinkling of an eye, caught up by your power. For the sun, it's going down on the day of grace. Oh, and in any moment now, we could see your face. You taught us to be looking for the end of the age, and your hand through history has been turning every page. Now this could be the day we meet you in the sky. This could be the hour. We will be like you in the twinkling of an eye, caught up by your power. This could be the day we meet you in the sky. This could be the hour. We will be like you in the twinkling of an eye, caught up by your power. Oh, the sun, it's going down on the day of grace. The sun, it's going down on the day of grace. Oh, the sun, it's going down on the day of grace. At any moment now, we could see your face.
Hi, welcome to another LHB video. This video is called Operation Destroy Israel, Satan's Never-Ending Goal, which really isn't it. So, Israel. It became a nation in 1948 or 47, and that's when it became a nation again, and Satan has been trying to destroy it ever since. Ever since it became a nation after World War II, their neighbors have not liked them and have tried to destroy them many times. The Assyrians, the Egyptians have gone in. There was a 6-day war. There's like Hamas and all these other groups, and the Palestinians, and they have tried in present day to destroy Israel. Actually, in 2019, I had the opportunity to go over to Israel, and I tried to go before, but it never worked out. My mom was like, "You'll probably be bombed or something because it's Israel." But I was there for 6 days, and I never heard any sirens go off of like, take shelter, or, bombs or anything. It was very peaceful while I was there. Which my mom and I and the rest of my family were very thankful for. Because Israel is always being attacked, because all of their neighbors want to destroy them. But what's ironic is that I think I felt safer in Israel most of the time than I probably do in the US. Which is very funny. Maybe because I know Israel won't be destroyed. Obviously I know people get harmed in Israel, but I was just like, I'm good. So why does Satan want to destroy Israel? God promised in Genesis to Adam and Eve that the Messiah would come, and he told the devil that he will destroy you. And the devil didn't like that, and so he has tried to destroy them since. How did he try to destroy them in the Old Testament? Well, probably one of the most well-known ones was the Egyptian pharaoh who murdered all of the baby boys in the nation of Israel. When they were slaves, he killed all of the boys so that they wouldn't be so numerous. And then what else happened in the Old Testament? Obviously a lot of nations came to try to destroy Israel after they became a nation in the Bible. But probably the most well-known one, other than Pharaoh, would be Haman, who tried to have all of the Jews destroyed in the Persian Empire. But God put Esther in a power of authority to have a connection to the king, and so that she could save God's people. Because if Haman would have been able to destroy the Jews, then Jesus wouldn't have been able to come, because he was going to come from the Jews. So basically, if Satan can destroy Israel, then he destroys the prophecies that are against him, because if he destroys Israel, then Jesus can't come back. He can't rule and reign. He won't be thrown to the pit of hell. And none of these things that are talked about in the Bible about the devil will happen to him if he can destroy Israel. But obviously we know it's not going to happen. But the devil's not that smart. So let's look at Genesis 12. 1 through 3. There. Genesis 12, 1 through 3. Now the God said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, that's Israel. And I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curses thee. And in thee shall all families of the world, or of the earth, be blessed. And that is talking about Jesus, because we are all blessed by Jesus coming. And now let's jump down to verses 10 to 20. And there was famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. And it came to pass, when he was come near to enter into Egypt, that he said unto Sarai his wife, Behold now, I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. Therefore it shall come to pass, when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they shall kill me. But they shall save thee alive. Say, I can't talk, I'm sorry. Say, I pray thee, that thou art my sister, for... there's not even a for, I'm sorry. Thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and for my soul shall live because of thee. And it came to pass that when Abram was come into Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman, that she was very fair. The princess also of Pharaoh saw her, and commanded her before Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And he entreated Abram well for her sake. And he had sheep, and oxen, and asses, and menservants, and maidservants, and she-asses, and camels. And the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues, because of Sarai, Abram's wife. And Pharaoh called Abram, and said, What is this that thou hast done unto me? Why didst thou not tell me that she was thy wife? Why saidst thou, She is my sister? So I might have taken her to be to wife. And now therefore, behold thy wife, take her and go thy way. And Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, that they sent him away, and his wife, and that all that he had. So if Pharaoh would have made Sarah his wife, then there would be no promised child. There would be no Isaac, because she would be with another man. Because I highly doubt, if God hadn't stepped in and not make that happen, because he plagued Pharaoh, if that hadn't happened, and Pharaoh did make Sarah his wife, then Abram was not going to get her back. And then there'd be no Isaac, there'd be no promised seed. And so, because it had to come from those two, as we learned, because because Abraham and Sarah get impatient, and Sarah's like, take Hagar, my maidservant, and as we all know, Abraham and Hagar have Ishmael, and it didn't work because that wasn't the son that God promised to Abraham. So it had to be Sarah and Abraham who had a child together. It could not be Abraham and someone else. Or it could not be Sarah and someone else. It had to be the two of them. God was like, it has to be from you two. It has to be from your seed. So if God hadn't saved them, basically, then there would be no Israel today, or no Jesus, no, the prophecies, the promises would not have been able to come true. Now let's go to Esther. Esther 3, verse 12 and 14. Then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month, and there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants, and to the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province, according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language. In the name of King Xerxes was it written, and sealed with the king's ring. And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces, to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. The copy of the writing for a commandment to be given to every province was published unto all people, that they should be ready against that day. Just reading that, especially when it's saying, all Jews, women and children, old and young, it obviously makes me think of the Holocaust. Haman and Hitler would have gotten along really, really well. Haman, he was trying to kill all the Jews. They had them all in the kingdom of Persia, and he didn't like them because Mordecai, not Malachi. Mordecai would not bow to Haman, and so he was like, oh yeah, then I'm gonna kill your people. And the devil was definitely using him there to try and destroy them, because again, if all the Jews would have been destroyed, then Jesus wouldn't have been able to be born and to save us from our sins, and then nothing would have happened. Like, the Gospels wouldn't have happened, nothing in the New Testament would have happened or been prophesied about, which is very crazy to think of. And obviously, jumping into more modern times in the 30s and 40s, Hitler and the Nazis took over Germany and a lot of Europe, and they killed 6 million Jews. And, I can't imagine someone doing that. I have listened to the testimonies of Holocaust survivors. Actually, when I was in school, we had a Holocaust survivor come and talk to us. I have read books about Holocaust survivors. And it's amazing that anyone even survived. They were given bread and hardly any soup to eat. And you see the videos and the pictures. They were skeletons when they were rescued. And you're like, how can anyone survive that? And obviously not all the Jews were put into the Holocaust. A lot of Jews escaped. A lot of people, Christians and even non-Christians, helped the Jews escape. And God used those people to save the Jewish people. But he, 6 million died, but he didn't let everyone die. And not too long ago, actually, because a couple weeks ago, it was Holocaust Remembrance Day, so I was watching a video of a Holocaust survivor, and the interviewer was asking him, he's like, how did you survive? And he was like, luck. He couldn't explain it other than he was just lucky. He was like, I don't know. He's like, just luck. And it's because God saved him. Whether he believes that or not, it's because God saved him. And, Hitler tried to kill him, but God didn't let him. And After that, he gave the Jewish people their land back. They don't have all of it, but they did become a nation, which was prophesied about. And as horrible as the Holocaust was, would the Jewish people have been able to become a nation again if the Holocaust hadn't happened? Because the whole world felt so sorry for them, and they knew that they needed a land of their own, and so they gave them part of the land of Israel, which was rightfully theirs. But would Israel have been able to get the land back if they hadn't gone through the Holocaust? I don't know. Jews were not looked well on really by anyone. So that was probably God used the bad of the Holocaust to break something good out of it, which was Israel going back into the land. And yeah, both of these, you read Esther and you can't help but think of the Holocaust because they wanted to do the same thing. And God protected them in both instances, which is amazing. Pharaoh tried to destroy the Jews, obviously, by killing the baby boys and making them not so numerous. And then Pharaoh also tried to destroy Israel after they left Egypt and they were against the Red Sea. He tried to destroy them, and obviously that didn't work out very well. And then Israel almost had themselves destroyed when they worshipped the golden calf. And let's actually read that. So let's go to Exodus 32. Exodus 32, verse 24. Verse 24. Oh, oops, sorry. I was looking at chapter 33. There it is, okay. Yet now, if thou wilt forgive their sin, and if not, blot me, I pray thee, out of thy book, which thou hast written. So, this is after Israel has sinned against God by worshiping the golden calf, and Moses is asking God, do not blot out their name. Please blot out mine. He is being kind of like a Christ figure here, and being like, let me take their place. And God was like, no, that's, no, they need to pay for it themselves. Actually, let's just read what God's response is and the Lord, in verse 33, and the Lord said unto Moses, whosoever hath sinned against me will I blot out of my book. So God's like, you haven't sinned against me, so you're not going to be blotted out. But the nation of Israel has. And I think we always find it so, just how could Israel, you look at their time in the wilderness and you're like, how could they be so wishy-washy? Because God just got them out of Egypt. They just saw all these signs and wonders, and then they're like, worship this golden calf. And you're like, why are you stupid, Israel? And then, they don't have any food or water, and they complain. They're like, oh, it would have been better in Egypt. And then God gives them what they want. And, their clothes didn't wear out. Like, God was so good to them during that time. And yet they complained, and they turned against him, and they wouldn't believe in him. And me and my mom always say this, because we're like, how many times have we been like the Israelites? We're like, yeah, like, I'm not gonna doubt God. And then, like, a slight inconvenience comes up, and you're like, oh my goodness. We are a fickle bunch. Just saying, we are very fickle. But God knows that. That's why his grace is sufficient. So, let's see, what else? When Moab tried to destroy Israel and stop them from entering the land of Canaan, let's go to Numbers 22. So I won't read chapter 22 because I would have to read the whole chapter. I'll just summarize it. But so Moab asks Balaam to go and to put a curse on Israel, basically, so that they will not be prosperous and they will not be able to enter the land. And Balaam is going there, and as we all know, it's Balaam and the talking donkey. and the donkey keeps on swerving away because the angel of God is trying to stop him and would have killed him if necessary. And, you know, Balaam starts striking the donkey, and God lets the donkey talk, and he's like, or she, I think the donkey's actually a girl, is like, why have you hit me these 3 times? And he's like, because you keep on, you know, making me look like a fool and whatnot. And then the angel appears onto him, and is like, she was actually protecting you. Do not curse Israel, bless them. So he blesses them, and Moab's not too happy, but Balaam's like, I don't feel like dying today, and I want to obey God. So he listens to them, but he listens to God. But if Balaam would have listened to Moab and done that, then wouldn't have been the greatest for Israel. All these nations are always trying to destroy Israel. Let's see, we already talked about Esther. Babylon, when they took over and took them as refugees and, you know, took them in. And then, I mean, you can even say when Jesus was born, Herod, you know, tricked the wise men and was like, tell me where he is, and I want to go worship him too. But really, he just wanted to know where Christ was so he could kill him. And he knew around the age that Jesus was. So he had the baby boys from, like, infant to 2 years old killed, but God told Joseph to take Mary and Jesus to Egypt, and so that's where they went. But, I mean, so even when Jesus is here on earth, the devil is still trying to kill him. He is here, he is 2 years old, and the devil is trying to destroy him. And it's crazy, 'cause just like, it's never worked. Like, why do you keep on trying? He's not that smart. So obviously the devil is still trying to destroy Israel today. I follow how many Israeli, like, social media pages on Instagram, and how many times I see them say, like, rockets have been fired into Israel. And, you know, it's, Israel's basically always under constant attack. That's why, I was actually able to go to Israel in 2019, and that's why I was surprised. I was there for 6 days, and nothing happened. For 6 days. I never heard any sirens going off. I never heard of any attack happening anywhere while I was there. It was really peaceful. And I was like, oh, this is nice. You know, glad no bombs are flying overhead or rockets or anything. But it was very peaceful when I was there. But all of Israel's neighbors hate them. I mean, the people in the country even hate Israel. When I was in Jerusalem, and we were walking the way of the cross, which is the Catholic way that I think Jesus walked, but I had no choice. I was with a group, so, you know, we're walking it, and we're going through which I didn't know this before I had gone to Israel. So there's a Muslim section of Jerusalem, and then there's a Jewish section of Jerusalem, and then there's the Christian section of Jerusalem, which is actually Catholic. But, so we're walking through the Muslim section, and they have all these, like, stalls and shops up. And I'm looking at all these things that they have, and all of these shirts are saying, like, Free Palestine, and, like, all anti-Israel stuff, and I'm just like, excuse me? Like, you're in their land. But even the people in the country, so you're just like, okay. But Satan is going to try to destroy Israel after we're gone. He's going to make the covenant with Israel as the Antichrist for 7 years. He is going to, and then Israel's going to be like, you're our Messiah. And he's going to build a temple. He is going to tell not just the Jewish people, but the world to worship him, because he is God. And then he is going to try and destroy Israel at the Battle of Armageddon, and then that's when Jesus and the saints are going to come during that, and Jesus is going to save Israel. And then Even after the 1,000-year reign of Christ, at the very end, Satan is going to gather the people of the world who cannot be numbered to come against the holy city and come against God's people, and then God's just gonna drop a fireball from heaven and they're gonna be destroyed. But he is going to continue trying to destroy Israel until he's literally thrown into the lake of fire and he cannot do it anymore. He is not going to give up until he can't do it anymore. He can't succeed. He will never succeed. You would think he would get that by now, but again, he's not that smart. It's just crazy though, because if you look through history and you see all these, nations, how many nations have been destroyed by other nations? It was a very common thing to do. People would go in, kill the original nation that was there, they would take over. But no one's been able to do that with Israel, and it's not for lack of trying. For 2,000 years they were persecuted. They were persecuted by the Catholics, who were trying to force them to Catholicism, and if they wouldn't convert, they would kill them. They were persecuted and still are persecuted by Muslims because they want their land, because apparently the Muslims don't have enough land in the Middle East and they need just that little bit of land that Israel has. Because it's that's the thing that I find so fascinating, that Israel, I know it's not the full size that it is supposed to be, but it's so interesting because Israel is really small. It's a very small country. You would not think that this country would be that hated or that sought after to destroy or take over, because they're very small. You're like, it can't be because they have this massive land. They have a very small land and all their neighbors hate them and they want to destroy them and kill them and take over. But God is never going to let that happen. And you see the faithfulness of God through history to the Jews. He has never, even when they've been scattered, he has never let them be destroyed. Even with the Holocaust, he's still protected his people. And he's never going to let them be destroyed. Even at Satan's last stand, when he tries to attack God and the holy city at the very end, before he's thrown into the lake of fire, God just fire from heaven. He sends fire from heaven and he destroys them all, and he throws Satan into the lake of fire. And he's not going to let anyone destroy his people. Israel is very important. They are, they're God's chosen people. And God's not going to let anyone destroy them. Whether it be the devil at the end or the devil using people, physical people here on earth. No one can and no one ever will. So, I'm never, whenever I see that Israel's under attack, I'm never very concerned. I have concern and compassion for the people that are affected, because obviously individuals can't be hurt or killed, but I'm never concerned for Israel as a nation, because I'm I know you're going to be fine. You're good, Israel. No one's ever going to destroy you. I believe what God says, and he's not going to let them die. He's not going to let them be destroyed. And if God can keep his promises to Israel, then he can keep the promises that he has made to me. And he can keep the promises he's made to you. So, until next time, have a great day and God bless.